Hey, welcome to another episode of Being Spiritual at RU with I'm Pastor Matt and with Father Scott over at the Canterbury House. Welcome. Good to be
Welcome.
here. Middle of fall.
Yep.
Fall semester's rearing hard. Our ministry did a prayer labyrinth a week or so ago, and I know Scott, you guys did I saw your animal blessing. That looked pretty cool.
Yeah, we went
Um,
to one of the local shelters, um, and it's getting to be spooky season. So
yeah, and then Halloween, and you're doing a All Saints
yeah, we'll do
service.
something on that. Soul.
All Saints, and then
Yep.
look for free water over at the right on Halloween. Are you doing that again? The Halloween water.
On Union Street. Yeah, the corner up there with Carrie and the others. We hand
Yeah,
out food. We hand out starting at 10 p.m. So we're trying to encourage a little sobriety and things. So as much as possible. But I haven't looked at the forecast yet to see. Of course, they probably don't know yet. But is it going to be raining? Is it going to be cold? Anyway, that'll affect
yeah.
a lot. So cattail,
It,
by the way, if you're looking at what's waving there, that's
it's
one of
a
the.
it's on a Friday this year, so
No, we're Halloween's on Friday, but we're actually
yeah.
doing it on Thursday. So,
Okay.
but I thought about. I always give hand out candy on Halloween itself. So I'll be doing that Friday night. And I'll have water too, for anybody who wants it. But may put a sign out front, free water. But
Yeah.
yeah, just to make sure people know we've got something. So
Well, if it's Thursday, maybe I'll stop by and
yeah,
help hand out
come on
water
by.
with you guys. But we thought we'd dive into this topic of Christian nationalism, which become pretty prominent in the news, especially with
Suddenly relevant again.
Charlie Kirk death, and then obviously with Project 2525, which is a very Christian nationalist, agenda. So we're seeing it in front of our eyes, and so we thought we'd go through a little book that summarizes it. Yeah, there it is. It's called The Psychology of Christian Nationalism. And so this week we'll just start kind of like, if you are able. I know college students have enough to read, so which is why we thought we'd summarize it for you
Right.
and dialogue about it, and you could listen to us on 1.5 speed. Um, but she spends the first kind of section talking about what is Christian nationalism and what, and I thought maybe we could, and she talks about why that's not the greatest. And so I thought I'd go through. She lists 6 things she kind of summarizes, like the research out there and what defines Christian nationalism, and maybe Scott and I will talk about that and why those aren't, Christian nationalism isn't the greatest. And then in the coming weeks, I don't know how many parts this will be, but
Yeah.
we'll go through more about it. So Christian nationalism, she says this. I have my Kindle open. I'm not sure what page. It's in chapter 1 towards the beginning, but she said Christian nationalism is a cultural framework, a collection of myths, traditions, symbols, narratives, and value systems that idealizes and advocates a fusion of Christianity with American civic life. And then she says there are 6 kind of tenets, building blocks to what Christian nationalists say. Number 1 is the federal government should declare United States as a Christian nation. Number 2, the federal government should advocate Christian values. Number 3, the federal government should enforce strict separation of church and state, especially for those who disagree with Christianity. Number 4, the federal government should allow the display of religious symbols in public places. Number 5, the success of the United States is part of God's plan. And number 6, the federal government should allow prayer in schools. So if you're like me, and I'm sure Scott, you probably experienced this too. Growing up, you heard those things. I didn't hear them listed like that, but
Oh yeah,
I was taught
I'm
those things.
I'm pretty
Yeah.
familiar and went to a private school until junior high. So my elementary years were at a private Baptist school, and yeah, very much talked about the evil secular world and how um, we needed to take America back. They didn't quite use that language, but they talked about we need prayer back in schools. We need all these different things, and this was well before a lot of the complications that came later. But yeah, and definitely a sense of this country. We are a Christian nation, and of course, I was a kid. I mean, I had no filter or reference to question. It felt okay. It felt reaffirming. Because I wasn't straight, but I was a white Christian male. So nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And like I said, this was well before. Well, there was feminism, but it was a different time. But anyway, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
grew
on
up with this.
yeah, I as well. And on the surface, like as a Christian, it sounds nice,
Mhm.
and actually I think she says that, 8 out of I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it's around 8 or 9 out of 10 Christians when they hear this think, "Oh, yeah, well,
Mhm.
that's not bad."
Right.
Then I think it's maybe around 5 or 6 out of 10, a little over 50%, um, kind of are all bought in on Christian nationalism and even to the extremes.
Mhm.
Um, and so really why it's become bad. So like it's been indoctrinated. I guess I brought that up because you and I are now middle-aged men, and we as kids heard these things. So it's in the fabric of Christianity,
Absolutely.
especially conservative Christianity.
Yep.
And why things have shifted so much is I guess without the Republican Party, or more specifically MAGA, has taken advantage of this idea that Christianity is being lost to the secular world, and
Right.
we have to fight back to
Right.
regain Christianity in
And
America.
the heritage, and that's
Hmm.
when you start getting into heritage, you start getting into things like sort of having lived in the South a long time, sort of um, Southern, what do you call it, with the war, not Reconstructionism. Basically, they're spinning basically making the Civil War not what it was about.
Yeah, yeah,
There's a word for that. I can't think what it is, but yeah, there's a lot of that goes on, and the sense of manifest destiny. They always talk about that too. That this was God's. The chance to start a godly nation, despite the people who were already here, but to come over and to spread, Christianity from coast to coast and make it a Christian nation, and yeah, um, Southern revisionism, I guess it's called too. But anyway, that sense of
yeah,
basically telling a different narrative that makes Christians, and in that case, Southern slave owning Christians, making them heroes of the war, and how evil. I went to seminary with a guy who was talking about what an evil person Abraham Lincoln was,
mm,
because he said the slaves were all so happy in the South before Abraham Lincoln came.
mm.
And I just remember listening to him, and I literally had no response because I couldn't believe he was saying these things. But it's definitely pervasive, and it is deeply embedded in a lot of Christian thought and narrative and storytelling to ourselves. Um, the idea of conquering the savages. I mean, people still use language like that, and yeah, it's pervasive, and it's not going away. It's getting worse.
Yeah. So there is that mentality that we have to take back America for God. We have this manifest destiny, like it has been for a while. in America, and which is why people have compromised maybe their values on what they would want to see in a president and a leader, because he's promised to bring them, make America great again, bring back Christianity.
Mhm.
He says things like, "I'm bringing back Christmas," as if Christmas
Right.
was ever lost.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
That's a whole. We could talk about that as Christmas approaches, but
yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah,
another
yeah.
story. But
But
yeah.
he strikes these chords, right?
Oh
He
yeah.
tickles their necks, and there's
Right.
things, and so that's important to recognize. And also kind of the flip side is Jesus isn't a violent person. Jesus never asked us to take over the world for him. He
Right.
asked us to go and make
Right.
disciples, right? To love our
Right.
neighbor,
What does
and
that mean?
that's
Yeah.
yeah. And so
It doesn't mean go and convert everyone. I mean,
yeah,
or at the point of the sword. I mean,
yeah, force
making disciples is very
force
different than
yeah,
forced conversion.
exactly. So um let's just go through each one of these and talk
Mhm.
about why they're problematic.
And this is on page, if you've got the book, it's page 13 and 14. So just letting people know if they've got the hard copy,
Cool.
how to follow along. So,
Yeah. So
and we were
the
saying
federal
earlier, this was written in 22. So obviously, second Trump administration, and even Project 2025 wasn't on the radar yet, I don't think.
no.
So she wouldn't even know about it yet.
No,
But she could write a second volume, obviously, or a
yeah.
revised edition. So,
In her preface, she talked a lot about the January 6th
right,
stuff. And so that's kind of the context in which she's writing, which honestly, not much has changed. And like you say, it's gotten
right.
worse in
It's
some
gotten
ways.
worse. Yeah.
So the federal government should declare the United States a Christian nation. So let's start there. Like, why is that problematic? As a Christian, like, oh, why wouldn't we want, somebody might say, why wouldn't we want us to be declared a Christian nation? We're Christian.
It's in the end, I wouldn't have known this when I was growing up, but now I realize they mean a certain kind of Christian nation, not
Mm,
Christian, but their kind of Christian. And it's
yes.
this ultra right wing Protestant. They may make friends with Catholics, but a lot of these people are very skeptical still of Catholics. So and any other, I mean, they'd hate Episcopalians, and I'm sure United Church of Christ, anybody who's anywhere left of center. So when
Mm,
they say that, and of course, the absurdity of it is to somehow, and they love to claim that the founding fathers, quote unquote, were evangelical Christians. Evangelicalism didn't exist till the 1830s. They couldn't have been, it's an anachronism, but also most of them were deist or they were some form of, a mainline group. They weren't these foaming at the mouth, and a lot of them were slave owners, which is problematic for some Christians, but for them, they, I think, see it as precedence, to say, well, they didn't have a problem with slavery, which actually they did, but that's a longer conversation. But yeah, they wanted to bring up slavery during the Constitution, but Jefferson and others said, don't, because it's too soon. We are not ready to go there. The British had dealt with it, or they were dealing with it. It was a little bit later, early 1800s, the British outlawed the slave trade. They got rid of slavery,
hmm
but the U.S. obviously took a war, and it's
Yeah.
still, people are still debating it and still fighting over it. So, but yeah, it's a, when you say Christian, this is all, I would say, dog whistle language too. It's like Christian nation. What does that mean? Because it's not just those words. There's a whole, glossary connected to that.
Yeah.
And
What it really means, is like you said it, is that it's a certain version of Christianity. It's not a biblical Christianity. It's a moral code of conduct, right? And so,
right.
actually, our friend Kevin, he posted this screenshot um, of a dialogue on X, Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, and um, he kind of said something about it summarizes Christian nationalism, and somebody said wrong. He uses some people to use guns to complete his sovereign will, and then somebody responded, "Who does Christ want us to kill? Be specific." And then this guy responded, "Homosexual men, rapists, murderers, kidnappers." And so, right, those are moral. God. When does God say kill?
These imperatives that they're
Yeah.
from Levitical law. This is not anything Jesus said.
Yeah. So it's they want to use violence, they want to use aggression to execute their moral law. White, you hinted at it with talking about the South and slavery. A big part of this is white privilege, white nationalism, which is why brown people are being deported. And it's they've said, in this Project 2025, she doesn't. I'm sure she would quote it in the book as part of this, but they've said that they want white people to primarily rule and control,
and men,
white men. So yeah, there's a lot of moral codes. So when they say Christian, they don't necessarily mean the love your neighbor as yourself, Jesus follower. Also, too, America is a melting pot. So even if they meant love your neighbor as yourself, to love your neighbor as yourself is to allow other faiths to practice, our Muslim neighbors, our Hindu neighbors, all those folks to practice their beliefs. And so to put that on them, I don't think is a very welcoming posture or very loving either.
It's really interesting that who is my neighbor is still a question. This is why Jesus told the parable of the Good Samaritan, because people said, "Who is my neighbor?" And there was a teaching in those days from some of the Jewish authorities that Jesus was, in conversation with. They said, "My neighbor is only the people who look like me, basically live near me, who share my values. My neighbor is my friend. My neighbor is my family member." And Jesus clearly is saying, no, the Samaritan, the quote unquote enemy of the man who was mugged, is the one who saves him. So Jesus clearly is saying this is not about who you like and get along with. So yeah, when people say, "Oh, they don't like woke Jesus," as they say, they don't like, but there is just no way around what he teaches, and especially things like the Good Samaritan. He's saying, who was a neighbor to this man? The Samaritan, who was not his friend. He was basically an enemy.
Yeah. Great point. And we heard JD Vance right after the election talk about that, right?
Right.
And
you're right. Yeah, he brought it up
and said that my neighbor is my family, right? And those like
and
me.
The Pope had to correct him.
Yeah, he wasn't Pope Leo yet, but when he was Cardinal Bob, he
from Chicago or wherever.
Yeah, he called him out, which was great, and
said that's not what this means.
Yeah,
and that's exactly what Jesus was talking about.
I know. Yeah, and Jesus does it over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely.
As I preached through the lectionary, I realized, man, this is everywhere. Where Jesus is telling us our neighbor is really our enemy, those we don't like, that we don't get along with.
Yep.
And so, yeah, that's number two. The federal government should advocate for Christian values. It's similar to what we were just saying, like what Christian values. Obviously, they really think it's certain identity markers that we wouldn't necessarily agree with, and we're Christians, right? Like, so we don't see those same identity markers that you have to be a straight white man to be a part of this. You have to, abide by, your wife. Some of these guys are like, your wife has to cook, sourdough bread, and be in the kitchen,
and that's the, like you were saying, imposing these quote unquote values on the larger population who aren't Christian. People who are not Christian are being told they, basically there might be those who basically don't believe in divorce because they could point to the Bible. Some don't believe in interracial marriage because they can, um, they will basically justify that from scripture. A lot of things like that. That are these things are being I would say being imposed on, but they would say, oh, we're just upholding traditional Christian values, which we could debate a lot of those values, but again, it's whose values, who gets to pick them.
Yeah, that's a big problem with all of this, and then just the volatility towards it, like this view that I must kill them, right? It's
Right.
is eye opening and crazy.
There's no sense of coexistence. There's a sense
No.
of, we need to destroy the opposition. We
Yes.
need to kill them. And
which is why previous nationalist movements and Christian national movements have made this a practice, or at the best at prison, like in South Africa with
right.
Desmond Tutu, was it Nelson Mandela? So yeah, it's sad to watch, and it's coming. Like it's coming. I mean, if this continues, they're starting with brown people, but once they resolve that, they're coming for guys like us.
Right.
To be honest with you.
Well, they've threatened already to, revoke tax exempt status, stuff like that, if you don't abide by certain.
Yeah.
And of course, we have to remind ourselves, this is not Trump's doing. He's the stooge at the front. This is a different think tank of people. This is a cabal or whatever, the regime that he is sort of the figurehead of. Honestly, I don't think that man cares anything about except making money and being, the king of the world. But all of this idealism and all this ideology is coming from other people. It's not coming from him. So,
no, yeah.
But people who are deeply seated in this sense of Christian superiority, Christian triumphalism, and it's dangerous for anybody but straight white conservative Christians. So
yeah,
men especially.
And so it's I mean all of them are similar. The kind of the comments, it separates church and state, especially when it comes to those that disagree with us. So it's okay. Right. It's okay for the church and state to be unified when we agree, but when we disagree, that's not good. So which is why they're having a big problem right now with a non-Christian probably becoming New York City mayor, and a Muslim, and they're losing their minds over that one.
Right.
So, and that's why.
Mm-hmm.
The federal government should allow the display of religious symbols in public spaces.
Yeah. I remember this growing up. They used to scream about, we need to put Christ back in Christmas, and all that. Put out, nativity displays, blah, blah, blah. So,
and honestly, like we had a season of where we were trying to do this collectively as a nation. Mm-hmm. And so, you see, at least around here, you see Hanukkah lights at Christmas and Kwanzaa lights, but that's not what they
try to cover every base. Yeah.
That's not what they mean though. Right. No. They mean Christian symbols only.
Because they're those, the freedom of religious expression advocates would say, well, then Satanists can have, a display, and that is antithetical to what they're talking about. And it's white Jesus. It is, their understanding of who Jesus is needs to be celebrated and enforced. Like I was saying, it has to be, you're not going to call it the winter holidays anymore. It is Christmas. And like I said, we can go into this when Christmas gets closer, but it's the abuse that they do to all of this is just.
The success of the United States is part of God's plan. This is where the violence, I think, comes in. That if we're not doing these moral things, then God's going to punish America. So this is why they see the No Kings protest as anti-American because we're not holding that moral code that they are holding, so we're anti-American and we don't want American to succeed. So,
and we don't want God's man to succeed.
Yeah.
And they were saying this, she mentions a little bit, but they were saying this the first Trump administration. He's like Cyrus in the Bible. He's like this not so holy man, but God is using him to accomplish all these things. And it's just their ability to dance around an issue, and to really grab at straws to say, this is, God's plan. It's God's plan for them. I mean, because they're seeing this as, but they don't have any sense of, well, whenever they predict the rapture, of course, and it doesn't happen, you want to say, well, do you really understand God's plan here? But
yeah,
they think they do, of course.
Yep. And then the last one, prayer in public schools. Again, they're not going to get they're not going to be happy with Muslim prayer rooms. So
right.
At the Vatican, they have a room for guests of other religions that they can practice and do their prayers and things. To be hospitable towards those folks who are coming in to visit with the religious leaders of the Catholic Church, and the Christian nationalists are all up in arms that Pope Leo is evil and woke because he's allowing other religions to pray on the premises. And are you kidding me? But yeah, what they mean is only Christian prayer is allowed in these spaces, and my version of Christian prayer as well.
Basically the Lord's Prayer or something, or they would craft it themselves. But it's ironic, of course, that they also want the 10 Commandments posted everywhere, which, as I've heard some people say, to question that, to say, well, which version of the 10 Commandments? Because this predates Christianity, obviously. This is not a Christian list. It is, Jewish, but Jesus being Jewish, but what we have this, whatever it's King James translation of it. I mean, this is not exactly what is implied from the Decalogue and other things in actually the Hebrew scriptures. So whose version?
Yeah.
But of course they want the Christian version.
Yeah, and I think that's a symbol that, like, putting their mark that this is a Christian place. This is our Christian place, right? Their flag, if you will, and so I think, it's very problematic because it's not based in who Christ is at all. And it has that kind of facade that maybe it is, because I think many Christians get duped into it because it sounds on the surface like, oh, well, okay, but then when you get under it a little bit, you see the problems. And if you can't see the problems with the way the Trump administration and this regime is like executing it, then you're not paying attention,
Right. Or just in serious denial.
Yeah.
It's not, well, and depending where you get your news, where you get your information, you say things about what is going on, and people will say, oh, I haven't heard that.
Yeah.
Well, of course, because you're listening to, news or whatever, Fox News. Yeah. So you're not really exposed to the truth.
Anyway. Exactly. Be careful of just listening to propaganda.
Exactly.
And that could be easy to fall into on both sides of the aisle, to be honest with you. So,
sure,
you have to,
the echo chamber.
You have to go out and hear it all, and try to make as best educated guess as decision as you can.
Yep.
Cool. So it didn't take us long to get to 30 minutes on this.
Yeah, one. It's one of our longer ones, right? So
so we'll continue the dialogue in the coming weeks. We'll try to
pick up the book if you want
to a weekly rhythm on this. Be great. And we'll dive in more, and then also too we'll start dialoguing about how to engage Christian nationalists and have conversation, and that can be difficult, but
it's coming.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you hopefully on Halloween and All Saints Day, and in the regular stuff at the Canterbury House. And
we've got a next week is a interfaith event, the dinner.
Yeah, that's right.
Talk it out.
Tuesday night.
Yeah, it's Tuesday night at 7:00 in the seminary, which is right on College Ave, in their big sort of central. We'll have dinner, but then we'll have conversations, interfaith conversations. So
yeah, that'd be great. A good way to combat Christian nationalism is to have those interfaith conversations. So
which drives them crazy.
yes.
But anyway,
Yeah. Good
anything that
stuff.
drives them crazy, I'm for that. Anyway.
Yeah, same. Ditto. All right. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Take care.